Hi, everyone. Michelle D'Amber here with Josephine Zanetti.
Hi.
We took a little break. I thought I was going to be working on a project, but I had some other stuff to do, and my project was moved to August. So we're back this week, and
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
I missed talking to Josephine too. So
Yeah, me too. I missed you. What? It's been a couple of weeks, huh?
yeah, it's been 2-3 weeks.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about, I've been reading this book by Dr. Eck and a couple other authors about energy. And, I've had this question come up from people and even myself, over the healing processes. How long does it take to heal from burnout? That's not a simple answer. So we're going to kind of go through the many different factors that are going to contribute to what that answer could be. We don't know what that is. So one of the first things would be, what's your genetic makeup? Some people just genetically, they have really strong genes and constitution in their body. These are people that live to their 90s or like 100 and something years old. I remember reading about a man who lived to like 115 in Texas, and he smoked cigars and drank whiskey. So, obviously this man had a good attitude and good genes because
Yeah,
he wasn't
that's right.
doing things that we think are healthy. So, that's going to be the biggest thing, your genetic makeup.
That's right. And this guy probably doesn't pretend that he's joyful. He really is. He really has joy. He doesn't view the world the same way as most people do. He's living in the moment, but he's really feeling good about himself. He feels good he's not probably afraid of death.
Right.
They're right. And so there's a lot to be said about these people who live a longer life. I noticed that too, that they're not worried about the future as much as most people are. They don't look in the past, they don't look in the future.
They're living in the present moment,
Yeah.
If we're looking in the past, we're probably going to be depressed for different reasons. I find people with burnout, the depression looking in the past is because you're looking at all the good times and when you had energy, which is a little bit different than maybe depression where people are looking at the bad things that happen in their life. For me, sometimes I'm kind of like mourning when I used to have more energy. And so that kind of would make me feel depressed, because I'm thinking, gosh, I used to be able to do that. I used to be able to do this, and now I can't. And so it's easy to spiral down, thinking about the past.
That's right. I mean, there's not that many 85-year-olds that we know of that is able to jump up and down.
No. Well, actually, my neighbor, so I have a neighbor, she's 90 years old.
Oh, yes.
Husband is 94. In fact, I called her this morning because I saw the paramedics. Her husband, he's not going to make it. He has heart problems and stuff. So she called the paramedics on him. But I went shopping a couple weeks ago. I pull out of my driveway. She's on her ladder with a rake, raking stuff off of her roof. And I'm thinking, oh my God, like I can't stop to tell her not to do it and do it for her because I was on my way out to an appointment. But I prayed. When I left, I was like, I hope she doesn't fall off the ladder. But I mean, she's 90 years old and she's out there doing more things than people who are young, so she probably has good genes, a good attitude, and,
Well, you would know about her attitude. I think she does. Didn't you say that she's got a really upbeat?
Yeah, she's spunky, she's spunky. She talks to everybody. She introduces herself to everybody. And she called me the other day and asked if my cat likes salmon because she had a half a can left over because she feeds all the, squirrels and stuff here. She's really spunky. So I think attitude goes a long way too.
Yeah. Totally agree.
So then the other thing would be, your mother's health when leading up to the pregnancy, during the pregnancy, was your mother stressed? Most people are because they're in unhealthy relationships or they got jobs and things like that. So, that's going to play a huge role in your birth what was happening while your mom was pregnant with you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, whether you were a wanted child, while the whole 9 months
Good point.
that the mother was carrying you, besides the fact that she may have had a lot of unbalanced minerals and toxic in her body, there's also the aspect of really wanting the child to be born, and that's very important. And love comes into play. I mean, so we talk about love, people talk about love, but they really know what it means, because there's more burnout people now than there's ever been in history.
Oh,
you know
yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, so we are a product of that, because we come from and our parents were born in the 1930s maybe, and already the revolution of feminism and all of that came into play. The roles started to change then. They were confused, didn't know if they wanted kids or not, and how many, and blah, blah, blah. So I mean, the whole dynamic started to change. So, I mean, the world was changing. Now it's drastic, of course, but it was like inching it to where we are now, quite honestly.
Right. And then there's also like how, your birth itself could have been stressful. You could have had the cord wrapped around you. I came out breech birth. My butt came out first and my arms were folded over. And, that I'm sure that played a role in some of the back problems that I have, so, there's a lot to consider that would, we're kind of leading up, that you're adding these things up. You're like, check. The next thing would be childhood trauma, and then what was your diet like? Back when I was young, TV dinners in the microwave became like the thing. So, were you eating TV dinners, just zapping this processed food and not getting proper nutrition? And then, of course, whatever traumas were going on in your family that play a huge role. And
let's say the parents didn't get along,
yeah,
even though you were not directly involved in their arguments, the fact that you knew there was no love between the mother and the father, and if there was, it was always argumentative. That has a big effect on the child.
Oh, sure. Or addiction. I grew up with alcoholism, fighting, and I remember crying in my bedroom, just because I was hearing all this. So, there's that trauma there that definitely influences our adrenal glands, because we're stressed, we're in fear. These are our caretakers, and our caretakers don't look like they can take care of themselves or each other. And then that stresses you out because they're supposed to be taking care of you.
That's right. And then you have the parent that is very overly disciplined, is a disciplinarian. Mm-hmm. And if there's something that doesn't go right, there's a person I know that when the mother would really get upset, she'd put him in the basement and leave him there in the dark.
Oh,
so I mean,
yeah. And then there's the parents that are type A, and they're pushing their kids to be the best. So they got them in sports, they got them in high academic things, and they're strict to them. That's a lot of pressure to put on your kids. And then, they're being disciplined, very much because they're not meeting up to all of these things. And I've seen that with families, and, it's a lot. It's a lot.
It is. And those kids, actually, what happens with them is they carry that, as we all do. We carry this in our adulthood, because it had such an effect on us. It takes years. The first 7 years of our lives are the most important, and it can take a lifetime to rectify the mistakes that were made between the time they conceived to the time to 7 years old. So imagine, so that's why we can't be too hard on ourselves in getting well, because we are work in projects.
Oh, for sure. And, and because I was having all of these traumas, I was sick all the time. I had scarlet fever. I had, ear, sinus. I've had multiple times strep throat, bronchitis, laryngitis, laryngitis, like all the jitises I've had.
That's right. Yeah, me too. I had every year I'd get sick.
something.
Every year,
Yeah.
twice a year, guaranteed. I had a virus. I had the virus that was, and because we were burned out, right? The body needed to rest because probably we were like holding on all the time and fearful and not knowing whether we were going to be abandoned, put on a corner street somewhere because the parents did not always get along. So that kind of thing.
Then you're in school all day learning about half the stuff that you actually don't need as an adult. They really should be teaching us things like how to balance a checkbook, how to have a savings account, how to invest money, like, things like that. And then you come home and you do this homework. I don't know. It's just really stressful for children.
It is. And even when we had the religion in the classroom, that didn't last a long time because they, on one hand, they taught us how to pray and everything, but the values were not there. So we were getting mixed messages, constantly mixed messages.
Yeah. We still do.
Yeah, we still.
So then, because you're experiencing all these things, you go into adulthood without the proper tools and the healthy coping mechanisms and a healthy way to communicate. So then you actually create your own trauma, marrying the wrong person, our work, whatever it is, we're getting into trouble, we're not being financially responsible. And so, then you're just tacking on all these adult traumas.
Yeah, the ones that we are accustomed to, that we became accustomed to when we were children. So what did they say? Familiarity breeds contempt or something, right? So,
and then also whatever's familiar and comfortable and feels like home, which usually is an unhealthy environment if you were brought up in an unhealthy environment. So then you meet people, friends or significant others, or even jobs, and you think, oh, this feels familiar. And then you get into it and you find out, oh, well, of course they're familiar because everybody's an alcoholic and I'm used to being around alcoholics. So then you realize that you're actually picking these environments that mimic your upbringing.
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, I think it's pretty much everybody's pattern. I think there's only a far few in between that don't want to recreate their childhood trauma. There's not.
And we do it without knowing it because again, it's familiar, it's comfortable. We may have not liked it, but it's something that we're used to doing in that survival state until we can. I think burnout helped me learn these things and confront them and to make better choices. And we'll get into that later. So then the other thing too is like, how are we handling this? Our thoughts, the things that we're doing. Are we drinking too much? Are we not sleeping enough? Are we trying to be overly productive because it's a trauma response? Are we working out too much because we want to feel good or look good because we're consumed with the outer thing instead of the internal? So these are all like, check off the list. You're just, hopefully you're thinking about these things and you're checking off the list and going, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, my mom was stressed. I did that. This was going on. I have my own trauma. So now we're leading up. You've probably experienced some trauma or some burnout, but you were able to recoup. So you think back and go, okay, well, I remember this time when I had this job and it was stressful and it took me a few months after I left to kind of get myself healthy again. And then I got better. And then we start doing the same things that we were doing before. So you got through that burnout because you were young enough, you had enough hormones, enough adrenals that you were able to get through that. So then fast forward 5 years later, you're in another trauma, you experience another type of burnout. Now we're starting to see these patterns of when we go through stressful periods, we go through a healing process, we're better, and then it happens again.
Right, exactly. So bottom line is that as you progress, you hopefully you're not going to be repeating the same mistake. And if you do, it won't last as long. And as you get more and more better at it, you know not to go and hit another wall, because that's what it is. You hit another wall.
Unfortunately, though, the body is not able to rebound like it used to. So, hopefully you're learning lessons from each of those times. However, the expectation that you're going to be able to bounce back sooner like you did before is not realistic, because now we're older, the body's taken too many hits, we've depleted a lot of our hormones. If your diet wasn't well through all of this and you're just now learning to have a healthy diet, that's going to play a huge role. So, these are things that are kind of adding up. How long is it going to take to heal? Well, if you're checking off on all these things that we're mentioning, it's going to take you a while. I'm 54 years old. This is not turning around like it did in my 20s, my 30s, even my early 40s. I was able to kind of bounce back. But for me, after menopause, it's just kind of like, nope, the tank is really low. So
yeah, exactly. And, I have a client who's been on the program for quite a long time, and it's the same for her. So she's like a bit anxious and also questioning whether this program works. But she's been under a lot of stress, pretty much the whole time she's been married. Now she's separated, and the worst time to be separated because of everything that's going on. It was not her doing, but her husband wanted to separate. But she is questioning whether this program is okay, because she doesn't feel her adrenalines are getting better, but they could not get better or quite. I mean, the fact now that she's separated and left, and they have split, and now she's by herself, maybe now her adrenalines are going to have time to pick up because of all the work that she's done on herself. But now it's finance. Then the problem of finance, because she's in her 60s, is starting to creep up. So if it's not one insecurity, it's going to be another insecurity. So it's how you handle it. It's really how we learn to handle stress.
Exactly.
Because if you don't learn to handle stress, no matter which program you're going to be on, it's going to be difficult.
And there's always going to be, something's always going to come up.
Always.
And what I had to learn is I can't completely eliminate everything and put myself in a cocoon as much as I'd like to. That's not realistic. So then it's like, okay, so what are my limitations energetically? You kind of look and say, okay, I know I can't do this or that, or I'm low on energy, so I probably shouldn't say yes to this particular thing that somebody asked if I would do. Creating boundaries, and then, learning to say, okay, I've had a stressful day. I'm not going to keep tacking things on into the evening. So I'm going to put my phone on do not disturb, and I'm going to do some deep breathing, and I'm going to do some stretching to balance out the stressful day. So you kind of learn these things, and that's where I think in some ways, even though I don't have the energy that I used to, I feel so much more calm. I know what my limitations are. I've learned how to create boundaries and to speak my truth. These were the things that I learned, because you have a lot of time to learn that when you're tired.
No, that's right. A lot of the adrenaline insufficiency, the burnout, is also derived from fear, So when you let go of fear and you let God, things get better. I mean, it sounds cliche, but it's a fact, So when you know that you're not alone, and that no matter what, how much you want to control, I mean, you're not in control.
No.
I mean, no matter how much we try. So there's certain things that we have some control. Sure, we have control of how much vegetables we're going to eat, and we have control of how many bottle of waters we can drink, and at the time we're going to go to bed. But anything else in between, I mean, let's face it, we have no control. So if we are able to have less fear and not think of too much about the future, because right now, even people, I mean, that's why there's more and more people being burned out, because with all the fear mongering going on, it's not just on the news, it's everywhere. It's on YouTube, it's everywhere, where what's going to happen next. And it's true. And even if it is true, what's going to happen next, it's
We
The
can't
fear
control it
can't
though. Like,
control it. So it's like death is
yeah,
inevitable, taxes are inevitable, and those are the two things that we have to deal with. We have to pay our taxes, that we like it or not, unless you don't
right,
work. And death is gonna come no matter what, because
right.
that's the way it is, that we like it or not. Some people who say that we're gonna live eternally, well, it sounds like a good plan, body-wise, but the body's gotta go eventually. So
Yeah,
I mean,
body's going. The
the
soul's
body, that's right.
yeah, the soul is going to keep going into another form, but the body's going to go.
That's
We're
it.
going to die. This is just a bleep in our whole existence. And it is people, we tend to be driven by fear instead of trust and faith and things like that.
That's it.
And
Exactly.
and even when you think you've come to a place of peace or whatever, like I was talking to my neighbor this morning, and she said, my husband acts like he's not afraid of dying, but then when it comes to, him not being able to breathe this morning, we have to call and, he's fearful. And I said, I noticed that too when I took care of my grandmother. She thought she was okay, but then when it came down to where she wasn't okay and we had to make a decision, I saw that there was fear there. So I don't think we're ever going to get to a place. You don't know that until you're on your deathbed, how you're really going to handle things. But worrying about it now when we don't need to makes no sense, like who cares? So what if there's no food? Just start drinking water, maybe have a protein shake. Like people are worried about food and gas and this and that. And I'm telling you, all that fear is just going to deteriorate. You're literally killing yourself by worrying.
So it's good to be prudent about these things with what's going to be coming up, maybe it looks like. But I mean, there's so much that you can preserve. Okay, it's like with the food. How much food can you have in your own house anyways? Eventually it's going to run out, and eventually, and what? And
And
then
they have
what?
to replace it. So
That's it.
if
Exactly.
you're waiting for something to happen, and then say a few months go by, and then whatever you bought to prepare yourself is going to expire. So now you're wasting money. And, I don't know. I personally don't worry too much about that stuff. So
Yeah, so for me, the preservation, I do stock up, but I'm not stacking up for the 10 years or 5 years or even 1 year. It's not possible. I mean, so I may do the pressure canning, like I said, that's for sure. I'm going to try it, okay? And because the meat or whatever you make with the vegetables, some vegetables, because you can't even pressure can all vegetables like broccoli and cauliflower, you can do it. But let's say you can keep it for 5 years, let's say. But then because the biggest worry is the energy. And so let's say the energy goes off, and then you got full of meat in your freezer, and then you lose $1,000 or more of all your meat in the freezer. So I thought, okay, so there's got to be a better way for me not to worry and not cause myself stress. Just pressure can the damn beef, or not beef, but the lamb, the ground lamb, and I'll have it there, and not worry. So now, because I went through that not too long ago, and I realized, hey, I'm not going to go through this. I have limitations with fear, right? I have limitation. God knows if I lose $2,000 worth of food, I'm thinking, oh my God, okay. And I said, no, I'm not going to go through that. I'm going to do a little bit of pressure canning, exactly the same amount as I have in my freezer, but that's not going to last me for years.
right.
Whatever I have, right? I know that, but it's okay. So long as I don't lose it, I'm okay with that. And whatever happens after that, well, only God knows at this point, that point, right? So that's what we have to just use prudence. It's a great virtue to exercise, but we cannot worry too much about, you put one foot ahead. I know some people, they've been prepared for this kind of chaos, whatever they're talking about, for 20 years. But does that mean they will survive more than you and me? Maybe not. We don't know. I mean, if there's a tornado and the house goes with the tornado and you got all that food in your house.
Yeah, but that's what's it. I know. That's why I don't worry too much of things,
Right.
I mean, so, the whole point is we can't answer, if you've had a lot of these traumas from birth through your childhood, through your adulthood, and then you're older and you're expecting 6 months, year, 2 years, 3 years to recover. I don't know that that's realistic. And there isn't a vitamin, a program, or anything out there that's going to bring you back to being 25 years old in a short amount of time or ever. If you're born with a certain amount of energy and you've depleted it down to here, you know have realistic expectations. So we just start to go, okay, do I really need to be doing the things that I used to do? Well, I used to stay out till 4 o'clock in the morning dancing, drinking, and then I'd get up and go exercise. Like, what purpose does that serve anyway? I find enjoyment now hanging out with my animals, talking to friends, reading a good book. Those bring me joy now, and they don't kill me.
That's right. It's like people who are expecting to win the lottery, right? So it's the same thing with energy. Okay, so I mean, that's 1 in a trillion that you're going to win the lottery. Same with the energy that you've lost. You can gain it back, but you have to work at it. It's a balancing act on a daily basis. So let's say you have a day where you feel energetic. So what you have to do is, okay, it's very hard to do this because when it happens, and it does happen, we feel really good. We get up and we want to do this and that, and we're not feeling tired. We have to try to continue to maintain it. Can't not go overdo it, because then on that day you can spend all that energy and the next day you're back in the crash again. Right. So it's a disciplinary thing to really keep our energy. It's like money, not because you got $100,000 in the bank that you got to take it and go buy yourself a car of $100,000 like a Ferrari. So no, what you do is you keep it there, and for rainy season, especially now. And even then, we don't know if we're even going to be able to keep that money. So who knows? Anyways, but it's that kind of thing.
Okay? Right, because we want to save it for like a true, real thing that we're going to need to, like, say you experience a death in your family. That could be traumatic. And so we need to save it for the things that we actually need it for, instead of, like, who cares about doing some cardio exercise? So I carry a little extra weight on me and I can walk. I don't need to be doing the abusive things that I did to myself before. I think the thing is a perception and being at peace and being happy with who we are and where we are. So if I'm constantly wanting to be something other than who I am right now, that's not going to help me heal.
That's right. Totally. I hope that the people listening to this, the listeners, are going to take from this podcast that it's a journey. That's what it is. It's about disciplining yourself. It's praying more, having faith in a outsource God, have faith in God, because you're not everything. You can't do this all by yourself. You need to call on help. If you need intervention, you ask for intervention, and God's going to he's going to intervene. And this is true, I mean, it's a fact. So it does help praying a whole lot for people. I'm starting to think, actually, I started to think of doing private videos, or maybe on YouTube, or the one that you're using for your clients, where I can send people links on how to do the rosary. Because I've been getting some emails and people are asking me, because for whatever reason, and because I do my rosary on a daily basis, and that helps a whole lot. Doesn't mean because I'm asking for what I want that I get it, but I pray mostly for not for me, but for people. I don't pray for me as much as I pray for a better world and for others that I know, family, friends, sick people, whatever. And but they want to know how to do it. So I'm thinking of starting that and starting to consult people on how to just relax more. I mean, I even consult the priest, one of my friends, I call him a friend, he's only in his early 30s, and I consult him because although he's very good at what he does, when it comes down to himself, time management is not the best for him, how to slow down and stuff. And so these are the little things that we need to learn how to do. And it's not always easy, especially if we have to go to work and we have other things to do and we worry whether we're going to get married or not, whether some women are worried whether they'll have babies or not. And we have to leave it all up to God, you know. And I mean, if it's meant, it's meant, but don't push it. I remember I got married out of desperation, quite honestly, because I thought that was the one and only. It's like there was only one man on this whole face of the earth. I said, there'll never be another one, you know.
It's funny, I was reading that there's studies that men live longer who are married, but women live longer who are single.
Right. You see, so I mean, that is something to be said. There are good marriages. There's no question. I've met many couples, not many, but I have met some couples that really are in sync, and they share the same values, and so there are, you know. But we do live in a world right now that it's not that easy to find people that share the same values. Now you meet people through online dating. So it seems like it's okay. You get to meet them, you go for dinner, it seems okay. But these, most of the time, there's only a few far in between. But most of the time, these relationships don't last either. So it's like, what is the secret in meeting anyone? So well, that's the
secret is becoming the best version of ourselves.
Right.
And believes that you'll attract the same on an energy level, not a physical energy level, but a vibrational energy. So the more work that you could do on yourself, the better, you know, and anything. I think, you know, again, look at all these things that we talked about that have impacted you to where, that's led you to where you are now. And then use this time to learn to eat healthier, sleep better, have boundaries, you know, find healthy outlets for things that are going to be more healing than physical, you know. Instead of working out like you used to, you might want to start doing yoga or meditation. You know, we have to do, I was talking to a client the other day who's managing stress by working out a lot. And I said, yeah, but you're in a high stress state and you're doing high stressed workouts. How are you going to not be stressed? You're in fast oxidation. And at your age, in your 50s, at fast oxidation, that's not healthy because you're actually very tired. So you have to, you know, there's a seesaw. So if you're doing all this high stress energy things, you need to do, you know, or over here, then you need to do calm things to bring balance. So that's stretching, you know, playing with your animals, reading, doing kind of light yoga type stuff, deep breathing, praying, whatever. These are going to help balance out the stress.
Yeah, and you can also join a fellowship if you feel like you're not well, you feel like you got an addiction going and you're not sure how to stop it, and you need to be around people. The thing with fellowships, especially 12 steps, is that you get to meet people, they speak about their experiences, and by expressing your own addiction, you're releasing the shame that you're stuck with. Okay, so that's a very big thing, because toxic shame is real. You know, it does.
They have tools there. You know,
they have.
I did them. I went to Al-Anon many years ago when I was married to an alcoholic, and I learned a lot there. My favorite thing is HALT. You know, if you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, HALT. Because whatever decision or whatever comes out of your mouth when one of those things are going on is probably not going to be good.
That's right. I mean, it's amazing the tools that they have in these programs. And then there's church. You can join a church as well, you know, and meet some people in there that are going to be, you know, part of your world that eventually they're helpful. I know that when I started, it took me years before I even joined the church. I never was into that. Even when I became a Protestant for a little while, it didn't last that long. But I mean, an evangelical, because I was living in a place where it was mostly all Protestant, didn't think there was anything else. But I mean, as I grew out of that, because I was very inquisitive, the fact is, you want to join a church in order to learn more too about who God is and stuff. And it's going to bring you some peace for some people.
For
now,
some
because
people, yeah,
that's right.
some people.
Some people are
I personally
seeking
don't
peace.
like church myself, but I have an individual relationship. But it is good
Right.
for fellowship. Some
Right.
people need more fellowship in their life, and that's what's good about 12-step programs, or even
Right.
just a book club, like whatever you enjoy doing and can have some kind of fellowship. That'll
Yes, because people get lonely when they're all by themselves, I mean, so I know that in these last 2 years, many people were not able to do anything. They couldn't even go to any fellowship of 12 steps, nor church or anything like that. So for them, it was very difficult. But on the other end, there is a bright light to all of that, because you have to look at yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, so all the fears that you may have had in 2 years and that they're going to continue still is a way for us to look at ourselves, things that we could change in ourselves for the better as well, and how we can get help from above too, because he helps us constantly. But it's not having fear is the biggest thing, because fear does burn people out. And we've been really bombarded in the last 60 years with fear mongering. It's like what's true and what's not true. They put all kinds of things on the internet to deviate us from the true meaning of life to whatever they want. So people get really confused, and the more confused you are, and the more scared you are, basically.
Yeah.
So and you keep seeking. You go on the internet, then you go and you search. Oh yeah, that. Then you got David Icke that talks about the reptile. Then you got Martin Armstrong about the finance, and you got this and you got that, and you're going, oh my God, this is too much, and you go under the covers and you're not getting better. So just shut the whole thing out.
Shut the TV off, shut the internet off.
No, that's right.
I've been reading. I know I've been reading because I try to watch like wholesome type shows on Netflix or something. But yeah, I haven't watched the news in 12 years. So I don't
wow.
know.
That's good.
Yeah, 12 years ago, I realized that it was just super negative, and I didn't want that kind of negativity in my life. And I feel so much better not watching it. I might be a little clueless, but I don't care, because I can't change it. And, I'm very much affected by what's going on. Like I can feel things. And so the less that I look at that stuff, for me, it's stressful and harmful to my physical well-being and my mental, emotional well-being. So I don't watch the news.
Yeah, and so you're a recovering addict of the news, which most people should be as well, because look at everybody ended up, not everybody, but a big population of the world ended up having, in the last 2 years out of fear. And so it's like, and we're talking this.
Yeah.
And so if they would have not watched the news, this would have never happened, right? Yeah. But they started with the news even during World War I with the radio.
It's all propaganda.
So it's like it goes back where people fall right in the hole. We fall right because of fear. This is how they get people. And, no matter how much knowledge we think we have, sometimes it doesn't matter, because that knowledge is completely useless.
Yeah.
Right?
So we're going to wrap it up so we don't get more fear in you by talking about things that we don't want to get fear.
Yeah, so don't be afraid, because whatever it is, you want to heal your adrenaline. Your adrenaline, the one way of doing it is to let go of fear. That would be the first thing that you need to do, to let go of fear. Do what you have to do. Eating properly is the right thing to do, because it does cause stress when we start eating things like carbs and
Yeah.
grains, too much grains and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is something to be said about diet. Nutrition is very important, no question.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we're going to wrap it up. We've gone a little bit longer than we like to on these videos. So we're just going to say thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back probably next week. If you have any comments or suggestions on a video, just leave a comment, do a like, and thank you for watching us today. Thanks, Josephine.
See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.